and the darker side of spirituality through paranormal investigations like this one. This time, the Happy Life crew intends to check out a haunted school where numerous students were said to have lost their lives. Early on, they encounter a poltergeist who is intent on chasing them away. The first encounter sounds like it's throwing plates, but then it graduates to a heavy bottle that could have really done them harm. Doors also repeatedly close as if something really doesn't want them to go any further. But the more I look at it, the more I think the cameraman is responsible for all of this rather than a ghost. The objects always just so happen to be thrown from the cameraman's direction, a strange coincidence, and the camera person always seems to be within arm's reach whenever the doors close, so I think he is either kicking it or else pushing it shut with his free hand. But when they get to the very top of the school, they find this mysterious red streak of dried up liquid overlooking the balcony. So even though parts of this video may have possibly been embellished, perhaps a student really did lose their life here after all. The situation only gets weirder when they come across a star in the hall that could have been used as a ritual or simply drawn by them to make the video scarier. I think it could be real though, because look what happens soon after one of them kneels in the middle. The way it echoes down the hall sounds forcefully loud and possibly real. One of them explores a room, while the other records from outside the window. No one else is nearby, so then tell me who is responsible for what happens next. They decide the inside is too dangerous to go any further and stick to the outer perimeter. Eventually, they come across a shallow well that gives off a residual negative energy that could be left over from a terrible and tragic event. Something compels them to climb inside, and sure enough, the dirt has been freshly disturbed. An orb passes left to right over the small grave as he plucks this fragment of human and holds it to the camera. Read Unfrequented World is the name of a YouTube channel that, at first glance, seems chock full of ordinary outdoor vlogs and entertainment. Gary goes on photography and metal detecting excursions, and generally enjoys hiking his large property in the northern Ontario wilderness, often accompanied by his loving family. But something threatens the tranquility of Gary Reed's Unfrequented World, a screaming cryptid deep in the woods that can twist trees in its powerful grasp. But more on that in a second. First, let me talk about Gary and why his observations matter more than the average YouTuber. Born in the small Ontario town of Redbridge, Gary Reed has been surrounded by woods his whole life. Aside from a lifetime of first-hand experience exploring the local lands, he also has a degree in environmental science and understands his surroundings on an advanced biological level. So when he says there is something out there that he can't explain, it probably means you or I can't either. His first encounter with it was at the age of 18 while staying in a cabin on Rabbit Lake, October 19th, 1994. That's when he heard a scream that sounded like a woman, but not quite. He describes the second scream as a wail, crescendoing into a howl, like nothing he's heard before. It ran through the entire camp, screaming from one side to the other, then it was gone. On April 30th, 2020, he heard it again.
That sucks. Can you hear screaming?
It sounds almost human, but not quite.
Gosh, this thing is still going on over here.
Here it is again with the audio turned up. I know foxes can make some weird noises, but this sounds like a person enraged. Camera in hand, he sneaks quietly towards the direction of the screaming to see what he can find. His trained eye detects a strange break in this tree, along with other trees that have been toppled over, all of them facing the same direction, like someone was running fast through the forest.
There's one there.
And next to the strange scene is a braided bunch that looks like something strong twisted it into this shape. Let me know if there is any other way for these branches to fuse together, if not by sheer force. The deeper he goes, the more it looks like something large has stomped through. Oddest of all are these large tracks left by what he suspects is a cryptid that walks upright.
Not mine.
It's clear to me that these are not your average boots.
Like toe prints in here. You can almost see the toes.
At 10 minutes and 25 seconds, he tries to trace an outline of its toes, but I think he's a little off. Here's where they begin in my opinion, much bigger. The next day he measured the results, and it reminds me of a certain cryptid with particularly big feet. I'm sure you know who I mean.
13¼ inches.
I think it's real, but just to throw out a counterpoint, I will say that rain from the day before could have eroded the snow and could have made an otherwise normal footstep seem much larger. Now let's switch over to some trail cams set up by Gary. This evidence, taken exactly a month earlier on March 3rd, is the most compelling of all. On March 7th, 4 days later, he and his neighbor hear another scream so shrill, it sounds like it belongs to a child. He hurries out the door and finds himself alone and vulnerable in the pitch black night.
I gotta turn the dish back on. I can hear whistling.
A pair of animal eyes look at him from behind, but I think it might just be the light reflecting off his glasses back into the camera. But I could be wrong, because when they check around the same area the next day, his dog becomes agitated and seems not to want to proceed any further. Something is definitely up ahead. Maybe they are getting close on its trail. Not that its trail is especially hard to find when it leaves a path of giant bent trees in its wake. Could nature have done this? Probably not. It looks like something huge reached up and pulled it down.
That's a pretty big one.
And half a minute later, he finds this tree with a branch literally twisted off and set back in place. This doesn't look like a normal break to me because the tree looks rather healthy.
That's about 8 feet. And it's got a good twist to it.
Here's another perfectly healthy tree with green leaves, this time ripped in half by something strong, or maybe simply struck by lightning. Either way, that doesn't explain what animal is responsible for doing this.
You can see the bark and you can actually see lines. Well, those are tooth marks. See all those little lines are tooth marks.
I don't know what it is, but I know that anything that shreds trees while screaming is too dangerous for me to be in the same forest as. And that's only what's been going on for the past couple months. There's over a year's worth of cryptid content to uncover, so I encourage you to watch Gary read Unfrequented World and see for yourself. In the meantime, leave me your best